Time now for Money Power Politics. You know, my favorite part of the show. Days after calling for more internet regulation, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg says his company is doing all it can to prevent the type of interference that occurred in the 2016 election.
I'm confident in where we are now. We've learned a lot since 2016, where obviously we were behind where we needed to be. But the reality is that there's not like a single thing that we can do and say, all right, we put this in place, so now they can't even try to interfere. They're always going to try.
But as he touts these new security measures, the social media giant is facing yet another privacy problem. The Washington Post reports that more than 500 million Facebook records, including user comments and account names, were left exposed by a third-party company. The reporter behind that story, Washington Post, Tony Rahm, joins me now. Tony, I can sympathize with Mark Zuckerberg that, you know, he may have created a tiny little plush toy and it has turned into a behemoth monster, but that monster is his. Break down exactly what happened here, because the average Facebook user would say, wait a minute, why would a third party have any of my information anyway?
Yeah, it's a day that ends in a Y, and yet here we are again talking about another Facebook privacy mishap. And in this case, it actually involves two different app developers. One was a Mexican media company, and the other created an app that was called At the Pool. And in both cases, these developers had a bunch of information about Facebook users, ranging from their names, their email addresses, their interests, and in some cases...
Help me understand that, because I think the average Facebook user does not realize that all of that information they're putting out there is then going to separate entities.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're an organization that's on Facebook and you're a media company, for example, as in this case, you know, that media company is able to see all of your interactions with their page or with their group, including the things that you may have clicked like on. And with the developer, when you're clicking on an app that they've made and authorizing that app to have access to your profile, you're essentially giving it permission to use that data. Now, in most cases, this is innocuous, but in the case of these two developers that came to light because of a cybersecurity firm yesterday, they were storing the information they had access to on a publicly available cloud server. That's terrible cybersecurity practice. It's not allowed by Facebook, but it was a serious risk to these users who could have had their information compromised. And so yet again, we're talking about an instance in which data has been taken off Facebook and could have been put to misuse.
So what is Facebook saying? What's their reaction?
Well, Facebook says that the developer shouldn't have done this in the first place. It was a violation of its policies. It's worked with Amazon to have this information taken down so users can or bad actors can no longer access this user data. But the fact of the matter is the information was available because Facebook has a service that relies on data, and other developers can take advantage of that data. And so if you talk to folks at UpGuard, the cybersecurity firm that found this, they said that Facebook essentially created the ecosystem for the potential for data misuse here. And once you put information out on the web, including on a site like Facebook, there's no telling what can happen to it at the end of the day. And so that's what we're talking about here with Facebook.
Okay,
data essentially
Tony,
got out of the bottle.
A violation without regulation most often means no ramifications. So Mark Zuckerberg writes an op-ed calling for outside regulation. I mean, that's kind of like my kids begging for a curfew. They could just come home early if they wanted to. Why does Mark Zuckerberg suddenly say, I need to be regulated? He wouldn't need regulation if he wasn't abusing the system.
Yeah, they're trying to get in front of the debate here. We have everybody from 2020 presidential candidates right on down to members of Congress talking about the need to regulate Silicon Valley in a serious way for the first time. And so as that work gets underway, you have folks like Zuckerberg trying to preempt the debate, putting out some ideas as to what that regulation could look like, because at the end of the day, it could affect Facebook's bottom line. And you're absolutely right. The regulation that we're talking about here at the end of the day could hold companies accountable for the kinds of mishaps that we saw with Facebook this week. It could mean tough fines and other penalties. Facebook is currently being investigated for another series of privacy mishaps. But, you know, I think the issue for most lawmakers is what can they do to stop them from happening in the first place?
Well, you know what Facebook could do? Change their policies now.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.